The Terran colony ship New Horizon drifted silently through the asteroid field of Kepler 442, its massive hull scarred from decades of interstellar travel. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge, watching the mining drones extract precious metals from the floating rocks. The colony had been established here for 3 years now, a small outpost of humanity trying to make a new home among the stars. Captain, we're detecting multiple ships approaching from the outer system. Lieutenant Rodriguez called from his station, his voice tight with concern. Configuration unknown, but they're big. Really big. Sarah moved to the tactical display, her heart sinking as she saw the massive signatures appearing on their sensors. 12 enormous vessels, each one dwarfing their colony ship, were moving in perfect formation toward their position. The design was unlike anything in the human databases, sleek, organic curves that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Hail them," Sarah ordered, though she already suspected what kind of response they would receive. Humanity had been expanding into space for only 50 years, and they had yet to encounter another intelligent species. Today, it seemed that streak was about to end. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being that made Sarah's blood run cold. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Its skin was a mottled gray-green, and multiple eyes dotted its elongated skull. When it spoke, its voice was a harsh rasp that seemed to come from multiple throats. "Primitive creatures of the 3rd planet," the alien said, its translator rendering the words in perfect English. "I am Warlord Vexta of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been deemed unworthy of continued existence. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be swift." Sarah straightened her shoulders, refusing to show fear even as her mind raced. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran Colonial Authority. We are peaceful explorers seeking only to establish a new home. We have no quarrel with your empire." Vexta's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been amusement. "Your protests are irrelevant. The Zephyrian Empire has claimed this system for our own expansion. Your presence here violates our territorial sovereignty. However, we are not unreasonable. We will spare some of your young for study and servitude. The adults will be eliminated." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sarah felt a cold rage building in her chest as the implications of the alien's words sank in. They wanted to take the children, her people's children, and kill everyone else. "Sir," Rodriguez said quietly, "we're receiving reports from the surface colonies. They're deploying some kind of energy nets. Our people can't move, but the children, they're taking the children aboard their ships." Sarah's hands clenched into fists as she watched the tactical display show smaller Zephyrian craft descending to the planet's surface. The colony had nearly 2,000 people, including over 300 children under the age of 16. The thought of these monsters taking them, studying them like laboratory animals, filled her with a fury she had never experienced before. "Give me a channel to Earth," she ordered. "Emergency priority alpha. And prep our quantum beacon." "Captain, Earth is 47 light years away. Even with quantum entanglement, it will take hours for a response," Rodriguez protested. "I know," Sarah said grimly, "but they need to know what happened here. They need to know what these creatures did to our children." As she composed a message that would change the course of human history, Sarah watched helplessly as the alien ships continued their methodical capture of the colony's youngest members. The Zephyrians moved with clinical efficiency, their energy nets rendering both adults and children immobile before they selectively extracted only those under 16 years of age. The colony's defense systems were laughable against such advanced technology. Their plasma cannons couldn't even penetrate the alien shields, and their fighters were swatted aside like insects. In less than 2 hours, every human child in the Kepler 442 system had been taken aboard Zephyrian vessels. Elder Krelak, the Zephyrian science coordinator, examined the small human specimens with clinical detachment. The creatures were fascinating in their simplicity. Only 2 arms, 2 legs, and those curious optical organs that seemed to leak water when the specimens were distressed. The youngest ones made particularly interesting sounds, high-pitched vocalizations that seemed to serve no logical purpose. These creatures appear to have an extended maturation period, Krelak noted into his recording device. Unlike our own species, which reaches cognitive maturity within 2 standard cycles, these humans require nearly 20 cycles to achieve full development. This extended childhood may explain their species' apparent lack of advancement. One of the smaller specimens, a female with yellow head fur, was making those curious water-leaking sounds again. Krelak found it mildly annoying and considered sedating the creature, but decided the behavior might provide useful data for their psychological studies. "Sir," his assistant, junior researcher Thaxmon, approached with obvious excitement. "We've discovered something remarkable about these creatures' neural development. Their brain plasticity during the juvenile stage is unprecedented. With proper conditioning, we could potentially mold them into perfect servants for the Empire." Krelak's secondary eyes focused on his subordinate with interest. "Explain." "Their cognitive pathways are incredibly adaptable during the early development phase. We could essentially reprogram their thought patterns, their loyalties, even their concept of identity. Imagine an army of servants who believe service to the Empire is their natural state of being." The elder scientist felt a flutter of excitement in his chest cavity. Such a discovery would bring great honor to his research cast and significant advancement opportunities within the Empire's hierarchy. These primitive humans, in their ignorance, had provided the Zephyrians with something far more valuable than they could have imagined. "Begin preliminary conditioning protocols immediately," Krelak ordered. "Start with the oldest specimens. Their neural patterns should be the most resistant, providing us with baseline data for developing more effective techniques." As the Zephyrian research vessel prepared to depart the system with its precious cargo, none of the aliens gave any thought to the possibility of retaliation. In their arrogance, they viewed humanity as nothing more than a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 different worlds, each one falling within cycles of first contact. They had no way of knowing that humans were different. They couldn't comprehend the depths of protective fury that could drive a species to unimaginable acts of vengeance when their young were threatened. The Zephyrians saw only weak creatures that leaked water from their optical organs and made meaningless sounds when distressed. Back on Earth, the quantum message from the Kepler 442 colony arrived at the Terran Defense Headquarters like a thunderbolt. Admiral Marcus Steele, a grizzled veteran of the Mars colonial wars, read the transmission 3 times before the full horror of it sank in. An alien species had attacked a peaceful human colony and kidnapped over 300 children. "Give me the Security Council," he ordered his aide. "Emergency session, classification Omega Black, and wake up President Martinez. She needs to hear this immediately." Within 6 hours, every major government on Earth was aware of what had happened in the Kepler 442 system. The reaction was swift and unanimous. This act of aggression against human children could not stand. Resources that had been allocated to peaceful exploration were immediately redirected to military applications. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, Director of Weapons Research at the Luna Defense Institute, received a call that would define the rest of her career. "Elizabeth, we need everything," Admiral Steele told her. "Every prototype, every theoretical weapons system, every piece of experimental technology we've been developing. We're going to war, and these aliens have no idea what they've just unleashed." The Zephyrian Empire, in their casual cruelty and absolute arrogance, had made a fatal miscalculation. They had seen humanity's peaceful nature and mistaken it for weakness. They had observed human emotions and dismissed them as primitive inefficiency. Most critically, they had taken human children and assumed there would be no consequences. They were about to learn why, throughout human history, there had been no fury more terrible than that of a parent whose child was threatened. The Zephyrians had poked a sleeping giant, and now that giant was waking up with murder in its heart and the combined industrial might of an entire world behind its rage. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace with their stolen cargo, they left behind a species transformed. The gentle explorers and peaceful colonists were gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Humanity was going to war, and they would not stop until every last one of their children was home safe, no matter how many alien worlds had to burn in the process. 6 months after the Kepler 442 incident, the Terran Defense Fleet had undergone the most rapid military expansion in human history. What had once been a small collection of exploration vessels and cargo haulers was now a growing armada of purpose-built warships, each one bristling with weapons technology that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the war room of the newly constructed Titan station, orbiting Jupiter's largest moon. The massive space dock had been converted from a civilian mining operation into humanity's primary military shipyard in record time. Around him, holographic displays showed the locations of Zephyrian territory based on intercepted communications and long-range reconnaissance. Report, Morrison ordered as his senior staff filed into the room. Dr. Hawthorne stepped forward, her usually calm demeanor replaced by an intense focus that had characterized the entire war effort. We've made significant breakthroughs in energy weapon technology. The new plasma cannons can punch through any known shielding system, and our missile warheads have been equipped with antimatter cores. Additionally, we've developed something the aliens won't expect: kinetic bombardment systems that use our gravity manipulation technology. Admiral Steele nodded approvingly. What about our intelligence gathering? Any word on the children? Commander Lisa Park, head of the newly formed Alien Intelligence Division, activated her display. We've located 3 major Zephyrian research facilities based on intercepted communications. The children appear to be divided between these locations. The aliens are conducting what they call cognitive restructuring, essentially trying to brainwash our kids into becoming servants. A cold silence fell over the room. The thought of alien creatures messing with children's minds was almost too horrible to contemplate, but it had only strengthened humanity's resolve. Every day that passed meant more psychological damage to the kidnapped children, and everyone in the room understood the urgency of their mission. How many ships do we have ready for deployment? Morrison asked. 237 combat vessels, Admiral Steele replied. Not as many as we'd like, but each one is equipped with technology the Zephyrians have never encountered. We've also developed new tactics specifically designed to counter their advantages in shields and numbers. Dr. Hawthorne pulled up another display. The key breakthrough was understanding their energy signature patterns. While their shields can deflect traditional energy weapons, they're vulnerable to focused gravitational distortions. Our new gravity cannons can literally crush their ships from the inside out. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Zephyrian research vessel Scientific Glory continued its cruel experiments. The human children have been separated into different groups based on age and psychological profiles. The youngest ones, those under 8 years old, were showing the most promising results from the conditioning protocols. Little Emma Rodriguez, only 6 years old, sat in a sterile white cell that the Zephyrians had designed to appear comforting to human sensibilities. The walls displayed images of Earth landscapes, but the alien scientists monitoring her every move through hidden cameras had no understanding of what those images truly meant to a human child. Emma, the synthesized voice, spoke through hidden speakers, using vocal patterns designed to mimic human authority figures. Can you tell us again why you are here? The little girl, her eyes empty of the spark that had once defined her personality, recited the words that had been drilled into her consciousness through weeks of psychological manipulation. I am here to learn how to serve the Zephyrian Empire. The Empire saved me from my primitive life and gave me purpose. Elder Krelak observed the session with satisfaction. The conditioning was proceeding ahead of schedule. Within another few cycles, the child would be ready for the next phase, complete personality reconstruction. She would retain her human appearance and basic cognitive functions, but her loyalty would belong entirely to the Empire. Excellent progress, he noted to his assistant. Begin Phase 3, conditioning on subjects 1 through 47. The older specimens are proving more resistant, but even they're showing signs of psychological breakdown. What the Zephyrian scientists didn't realize was that their successful conditioning was being carefully monitored by someone they had dismissed as completely broken. 12-year-old Marcus Chun, Captain Sarachen's nephew, had been among the first children taken. The aliens had subjected him to intense psychological pressure, assuming his apparent compliance meant their techniques were working. In reality, Marcus had been quietly studying his captors, memorizing their routines, their technology, and, most importantly, their weaknesses. The boy had inherited his aunt's tactical mind, and while he appeared to be just another broken child going through their conditioning protocols, he was actually planning something the Zephyrians' advanced intellects couldn't imagine, a coordinated resistance from within. During what the aliens thought were rest periods, Marcus had been using a combination of hand signals and whispered conversations to communicate with the other children. Not all of them were too far gone to respond, and slowly, carefully, he had begun building a network of resistance among the prisoners. The Zephyrians, for all their technological advancement, had made a critical error. They understood human psychology only in the abstract, viewing emotions and social bonds as primitive inefficiencies to be eliminated. They failed to comprehend that these same traits could become sources of incredible strength when properly channeled. Tonight, Marcus whispered to Tommy Kim, a 10-year-old who still retained enough of his original personality to be trusted. When they come for the next group, we're going to be ready. The rescue plan Marcus had developed was desperate and dangerous, but it was their only chance. He had observed that the Zephyrians conducted their most intensive conditioning sessions in a specific laboratory on the ship's lower levels. If the children could stage a coordinated distraction during one of these sessions, a few of them might be able to reach the communication systems he had seen the aliens using. Back on Earth, President Martinez stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. Representatives from every nation sat in the emergency session of the Global Defense Council, their faces grim as they reviewed the latest intelligence reports. My fellow humans, Martinez began, her voice carrying the weight of unprecedented resolve, we stand at a crossroads that will define our species for generations to come. An alien empire has attacked our children, stolen them from their families, and subjected them to horrors we can barely imagine. Today, we respond. The room erupted in unanimous applause, but Martinez raised her hand for silence. This will not be a war of conquest or expansion. This will be a war of rescue and justice. We will find our children, we will bring them home, and we will ensure that no species in this galaxy ever again makes the mistake of threatening human young. Admiral Steele stepped forward to outline the military strategy. Operation Homecoming will begin in 72 hours. Our fleet will simultaneously attack all 3 research facilities where our children are being held. We've developed new stealth technology that should allow us to get close before the Zephyrians detect our presence. Dr. Hawthorne added, each ship has been equipped with specialized rescue pods designed to safely extract children from alien vessels. We've also developed countermeasures for the psychological conditioning the aliens have been using, medical nanobots that can reverse much of the neurological damage. As the meeting concluded and the world leaders dispersed to prepare their nations for humanity's first interstellar war, none of them could have imagined that their children were already fighting their own battle among the stars. The Zephyrians had underestimated not just humanity's capacity for technological advancement under pressure, but also the inherent resilience and cunning of human young when faced with impossible odds. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to threaten a human child. The Zephyrian Empire, in their arrogance and cruelty, had awakened something in humanity that had been dormant since the species first looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. War was coming, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. When a peaceful species was pushed too far, when their most vulnerable members were threatened, the transformation was terrible to behold. The Zephyrians were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute, unwavering devotion to protecting their own, no matter the cost. The Terran defense fleet emerged from hyperspace like avenging angels, their ships materializing in perfect formation around the 3 Zephyrian research facilities. Commander Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching as his tactical display filled with enemy contacts. The aliens had been caught completely off guard. All ships, initiate Operation Homecoming, Morrison commanded. Remember, our children are aboard those stations. Precision strikes only until we confirm their location. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The Zephyrians had superior numbers and more advanced shielding, but humanity had something they couldn't understand: the fury of parents fighting to save their children. Every human pilot, every gunner, every engineer fought with a desperate intensity that pushed their ships beyond their design specifications. Captain Jennifer Walsh piloted her fighter through a storm of alien plasma fire, her single-minded focus on reaching the research vessel where her 8-year-old daughter was being held. The Zephyrian interceptors were faster and more maneuverable, but Jennifer flew with a recklessness born of maternal desperation. She took hits that should have destroyed her ship, only to keep fighting through sheer force of will. "Jennifer, you're taking too much damage," her wingman called over the comm. "Fall back and let the heavy cruisers handle it." "Negative," Jennifer replied, her voice cold as space itself. "My daughter is on that ship. I'm going through." Meanwhile, aboard the research vessel Scientific Glory, Marcus Chen's desperate plan was finally being put into action. The young boy had waited until the alien guards were distracted by the sudden appearance of the human fleet, then led his small group of fellow prisoners in a coordinated break for the communications center he had identified weeks earlier. This way, Marcus whispered urgently to the 6 other children who had retained enough of their original personalities to follow his lead. "Remember, if we can get to their transmitter, we can signal the fleet with the exact location of all the other kids." The corridors of the alien ship were filled with chaos as Zephyrian crew members rushed to battle stations. The children moved through service passages that Marcus had mapped during his carefully observed trips to conditioning sessions. His 12-year-old mind had retained every detail of the ship's layout, turning the aliens' own confidence in their control against them. Elder Krelak watched the battle unfold on his laboratory's main screen with growing horror. The human ships moved with a coordination and ferocity that defied everything the Zephyrian Empire knew about primitive species. Their new weapons seemed specifically designed to counter Zephyrian technology, punching through shields that had protected the Empire for centuries. "How is this possible?" Krelak demanded of his tactical officer. These creatures were barely capable of interstellar travel 6 cycles ago. "Sir, their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," the officer replied, his voice filled with panic. "They're using some form of gravitational manipulation that our shields cannot compensate for. And their pilots, they're fighting like their lives depend on it." What the Zephyrian scientists couldn't comprehend was that the human pilots weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for something far more precious. Every parent in the fleet had looked at pictures of their children before launching into battle. Every gunner had whispered a prayer for the safe return of human young. The entire fleet was driven by a primal force that the emotionally sterile Zephyrians could never understand. Dr. Hawthorne's gravity cannons proved devastatingly effective against Zephyrian capital ships. The weapons created focused gravitational distortions that bypassed conventional shielding entirely, crushing alien vessels from within. The sight of massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts simply imploding was both terrifying and satisfying to the human crews who had spent months perfecting the technology. "Target their engines," Morrison ordered as his fleet closed in on the primary research station. "We need those ships intact until we can extract our people." The battle reached its climax as Marcus and his small group of child refugees reached the communication center of the scientific glory. The 12-year-old boy's hands shook as he accessed the alien control panel, using the basic understanding of their systems he had gained through weeks of careful observation. "Marcus, they're coming," Tommy Kim warned from his position by the door. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor as Zephyrian security forces realized where the escaped prisoners had gone. "Almost got it," Marcus muttered, his fingers dancing over the alien controls. Then, suddenly, the transmitter activated. "This is Marcus Chun aboard the Zephyrian research vessel Scientific Glory. All human children are being held in Section 7, Decks 12 through 15. There are 312 of us still alive. Some of the younger kids have been hurt badly by the aliens' experiments. Please hurry." The transmission was picked up instantly by every human ship in the fleet. Commander Morrison felt a surge of pride and fury as he heard the brave young voice cutting through the static of battle. "All rescue teams, you have your target. Section 7, Decks 12 through 15. Go get our kids." What followed was the most precisely executed rescue operation in military history. Human Marines, trained specifically for this mission and equipped with non-lethal weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill, stormed the Zephyrian research facilities. They moved with the efficiency of surgical instruments, neutralizing alien resistance while protecting the precious cargo they had come to retrieve. Captain Jennifer Walsh was among the first to reach the holding areas where the children were kept. The sight that greeted her was almost too horrible to process. Rows of sterile cells contained human children in various stages of psychological conditioning, many of them staring blankly at walls with empty eyes that had once sparkled with curiosity and joy. "Sarah? Sarah, it's Mommy," Jennifer whispered as she found her daughter's cell. The 8-year-old girl looked up with confusion, her young mind struggling to reconcile the familiar voice with months of alien conditioning that had told her such connections were primitive and meaningless. I'm supposed to serve the Empire," Sarah said uncertainly, but even as she spoke, Jennifer could see recognition flickering in her daughter's eyes. The conditioning was strong, but the bond between mother and child was stronger. Dr. Elizabeth Santos, the fleet's chief medical officer, had prepared for this moment. The nanobots she had developed specifically to counter Zephyrian psychological conditioning were immediately administered to every rescued child. The tiny machines worked to repair damaged neural pathways and restore suppressed memories, though the recovery process would take time. Elder Krelak found himself face-to-face with Commander Morrison as human Marines secured the research laboratory. The Zephyrian scientist looked at the tall human with multiple eyes wide with incomprehension and growing fear. "You cannot comprehend what you are interfering with," Krelak said, his translator converting his panic into emotionless English. These specimens were contributing to the advancement of galactic civilization. Their sacrifice would have served a greater purpose. Morrison's response was swift and decisive. His armored fist connected with the alien's elongated skull with enough force to send the creature sprawling across the laboratory floor. "They're not specimens," the commander said quietly, his voice carrying a cold fury that made every human Marine in the room stand a little straighter. "There are children, and you're going to pay for every moment of suffering you've caused them." The rescue operation was completed within 6 hours of the fleet's arrival. Every human child was successfully extracted from the Zephyrian research facilities, though the psychological damage many of them had suffered would require years of treatment to fully heal. The younger children, like Emma Rodriguez and Sarah Walsh, showed remarkable resilience as the nanobots worked to restore their original personalities. Marcus Chun was reunited with his aunt, Captain Sarah Chun, who had survived the attack on Kepler 442 and joined a rescue fleet. The 12-year-old boy's courage and quick thinking had saved not only his own life, but the lives of dozens of other children who might have been lost forever to alien conditioning. But the rescue was only the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire had made an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. Humanity's response to the kidnapping of their children sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Word spread quickly among the various alien civilizations that had been watching Earth's expansion into space. The message was clear and unmistakable. Humanity was no longer the peaceful, naive species that had first ventured beyond their solar system. They had proven themselves capable of rapid technological advancement when threatened, and more importantly, they had demonstrated a protective ferocity toward their young that was unprecedented in galactic history. President Martinez's address to the galaxy was broadcast on every known communication frequency, translated into dozens of alien languages, and distributed throughout known space. Her words were simple and direct. The children of Earth are under our protection. Any species that threatens them does so at their own peril. We have shown restraint in dealing with the Zephyrian Empire, destroying only their military vessels while sparing their civilian populations. Do not mistake this mercy for weakness. The Zephyrian Empire never recovered from the devastating defeat. Their research program was exposed to other galactic civilizations, many of whom were horrified by the casual cruelty with which the Zephyrians had treated intelligent young beings. Trade relationships were severed, territorial agreements were voided, and, within a generation, the once mighty empire had collapsed under the weight of galactic condemnation. But perhaps the most lasting change was in humanity itself. The species that had once dreamed of peaceful exploration among the stars had learned a hard lesson about the realities of galactic politics. They continued to pursue scientific advancement and cultural exchange with other species, but now they did so from a position of strength. The children who had survived the Zephyrian ordeal grew up to become some of humanity's most accomplished leaders, scientists, and explorers. Marcus Chun eventually became an admiral in the Terran Defense Fleet, dedicating his life to ensuring that no species would ever again make the mistake of threatening human young. Emma Rodriguez became a renowned xenopsychologist, using her unique understanding of alien conditioning techniques to help other species recover from similar trauma. The galaxy learned to respect humanity not for their technology or their numbers, but for something far more fundamental, their absolute, unwavering commitment to protecting their children. It was a lesson written in the wreckage of Zephyrian warships and the empty corridors of abandoned research facilities. Years later, when young humans learned about the Kepler 442 incident in their history classes, they would understand that it marked the moment their species truly came of age among the stars. It was the day humanity showed the galaxy that they were not just another species seeking their place in the cosmic community. They were a force of nature, terrible in their wrath when their children were threatened, and utterly relentless in their pursuit of justice. The stars belonged to many species, but the children of Earth belonged to humanity alone. And the galaxy would never forget the price of challenging that fundamental truth.